Welcome back, YouTube. And for those who do not know me, hello. My name is Noah, and on this channel we talk about death, true crimes, haunted people, places, and things, spiritual reparations, and how you can fuck around and find out. If you're not subscribed here, subscribe now, bestie. Make sure your notification bell is on. And if you're not following me over on TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook, follow me there as well. I will be leaving the links down below. I know, bestie. I've been MIA for a couple weeks, but I had good reason. My husband was in the hospital. If you follow me over on my live podcast with Austin, Calls from Beyond, which if you're not subscribed there, please subscribe now. I'm going to be tagging it down below. You would know that he was hospitalized for almost a week. And then right after, I had an event with Kaya, the real Kaya, and it was amazing. And then I got the worst stomach bug ever. I'm still recovering, but no worries. I'm here and I'm gonna be dropping that heat. So make sure when I say turn the notification bells on, they need to be on, period, so you can get the notification when I drop. On today's episode, we will be exploring another portal location, and this goes without saying. Today's portal location is New York State, the whole state, not even just New York City, because we all know New York City is a portal. And this is one place that I've never been that I covered as a portal. Yeah, this is the first place. I've never been to New York. I've been to all these exotic countries. I've been all over the states, but I have an irrational fear of New York. And no, it's not because of it being extremely haunted. It's because of what they've made me think lives there, which is rats and mice. I don't know why. I'm not scared of tarantulas. I ain't scared of snakes. I don't like rats and mice. Why? Because they sneak up on you and they quiet down, make noises when they near you. And I'm afraid. But I am thinking about planning something for next year for my New Yorkers and all around them. So stay tuned, because I found out that there's more New Yorkers that follow me and people on the East Coast than here on the West Coast. Now, from what I've been told, researched, and heard, New York is very, very spiritually active, okay? It is very much so giving Las Vegas Jr. when it comes to energy. And it's because some problematic ass shit has gone down all over the state of New York. And we're going to be watching some TikToks that substantiate these claims. And as always, I will be linking all of the creators down below. If you are into spooky niches, give them a follow. This first creator goes underneath the handle Mystic Michaela, and she is talking about a house that has been dubbed the Death House in New York City.
Immediately, what vibes do you get looking at this house? This is known as the House of Death, located on 14th West 10th Street in Greenwich Village in New York City. Crazy stuff went down here. All the trigger warnings. It was built in 1856 for one family, wealthy, prestigious house, Great Street. Not much happens there until this guy moves in. This is Mark Twain, also known as Samuel Clemens, a very famous American author. He reports that crazy paranormal stuff happens while he's living there. He claims that a piece of firewood actually levitated out of the fireplace. He took out his gun and shot it, and there was blood everywhere. And he moved after a year. Now the building around 1930 was split up into about 10 apartments. All sorts of Mark Twain sightings was after his death. One very frightening, chilling report was from a mother and daughter who lived there, who said they ran in to the ghost of Mark Twain, who said to them, and I quote, "My name is Clemens, and I got a problem I gotta settle," which is very eerie for what happens next. In the 1930s, this woman with her daughter moves in to the House of Death. It's not called the House of Death yet, but she's psychic. She's an actress, and she gets premonitions while living there. She also has a really purple aura, and you can tell she's just really intuitive, and I feel her energy even in this moment. The house freaks her out, and she writes a book about it. Rare book. If you can find it, let me know. She describes all sorts of paranormal activity happening in the house. Damp temperatures, rotten smells, 22 spirits haunting the place, including the ghost of a cat, marching band music. And she says the house is going through a period of death. And she writes in this book that the house is taking people. It's killing people. And during that time, 9 people actually died. And the 10th death was Jan Bartel herself. After the book came out. And that's not even it. It gets even scarier. And the next story is what really earned its name, the House of Death. November 2nd, 1987. Police are called to this house, and a horrific scene they are met with. A man not only abused and tortured his wife and 2 children, he ended up killing his little girl, his little daughter. So now people are really paying attention because Jan Bartel basically called it, and Mark Twain did too. I deep dive even further on my podcast, episode 178, and here's the kicker. You can live here.
Not Mark Twain haunting it. And if I am like a medium and I even pick up that there's something wrong with the house, I'm not going to fall victim. I'm moving out. What do you mean? This next clip comes from the Paranormal Files, and he is speaking of the infamous murder mansion on Staten Island. You know, the names of these houses, mansions, it's really blowing me.
This is the New York City Murder Mansion, one of the most haunted places on Staten Island. In reality, this place is called the Kreischer Mansion and was built in 1885 by a man named Balthazar Kreischer. Originally, there were 2 Kreischer Mansions. One belonged to Balthazar's son Charles, and the other belonged to his other son Edward. Only one mansion survives to this day, and it was the one owned by Edward. Only about a decade after the mansions were constructed, Edward took a pistol, walked outside, and took his own life. And after Edward's death, Charles went crazy. He hired psychics, he held these huge Ouija board sessions in the parlor room of the house, and he wanted to contact his brother to see if he actually died by his own hand. It's still a mystery whether Edward actually took his own life, or if he was murdered. Now, if you ask me, doing all these Ouija board sessions and spirit contact sessions in the house, you're asking for the place to be haunted, and yes, it became haunted eventually. But that isn't the end of the bloodshed at the Kreischer Mansion. So in the year 1998, the Kreischer Mansion was bought with the intention for the property to be restored. But in the year 2008, a shocking revelation occurred. Apparently, the caretaker, Joseph Joe Black Young, was a hitman for the Bonanno crime family. And it was discovered that a few years earlier, rival mob associate Rob McElvey, pictured here, had been murdered inside of the Kreischer Mansion. And his murder was brutal. He was murdered in the entryway to the house. He was dismembered inside of the building. It was a very, very bloody scene. And then his body was burned in the furnace in the basement. So this place is definitely cursed, it's definitely haunted, and for years people have been saying that this is the most haunted place in New York City. I mean, just take a look at some of these photos. I don't know what these green orbs are up here. I'm not really an orb guy, but they do capture some interesting stuff there. But then look at this. This is an apparition that was caught on camera in the Kreischer Mansion just a few years ago. And I mean, there have been so many full-bodied apparitions caught on camera there. I'm not really that big on spirit photos, but some of these just can't be denied. I'm not even showing the craziest ones. So if this story interests you and you want to see a full overnight ghost hunt that we did there, you can go check out the new video on the New York Post's YouTube channel or on the New York Post website. The series that I'm involved with and that I host on there is called Haunted, Abandoned, and Hella Creepy. And this is the first episode. It just premiered today. We stayed overnight at the Kreischer Mansion. We caught some incredible evidence, including, this is the craziest thing. This is something that you don't see all the time when you ghost hunt. We were down in the basement where the body was burned, and we asked for a sign, and one of the light bulbs hanging from a string, actually the light bulb that was right in front of us, it was on the whole time we were shooting. And as soon as we asked for a sign, the light bulb just started to flicker in front of us. The whole cast and the crew were like, what the hell? We all looked at it. And all of a sudden the light bulb flickers and it slowly fades out and burns out completely right in front of us. So yeah, check out Haunted, Abandoned, and Hella Creepy right now on YouTube. Just search for the New York Post. Super excited to be hosting the show. And yeah, let me know if you want to hear more ghost stories from New York.
What is it about these mansions and houses that are making people go stir fry? It's like, is it the bigger the house, the bigger the audacity? I'm not sure. If you are native to New York, because this isn't the only like haunted house on the list. Y'all houses is haunted as hell. Let me know what it is because I'm confused. You live in a mansion. I guess money really doesn't buy happiness, right? This next video comes from an account called Curious Raven Chronicles, and they are informing us about 2 ghosts who haunt Central Park, specifically the ice rink.
Janet and Rosetta Vandort were 2 wealthy sisters who lived on Central Park South in the 1800s. Their father was notorious for being an overprotective parent, never allowing his daughters to leave the house without supervision. The only place they were allowed to visit alone was Central Park Pond, where the 2 would skate in matching red and purple outfits. As they grew older, the sisters became inseparable and refused to marry. They died as spinsters several months apart, and their spirits are said to still roam the pond to this day. The sisters have been seen skating side by side on a frozen lake in Central Park, wearing their signature bustles and creating never-ending figure eights. Janet and Rosetta were inseparable in life, and even in death they continued to skate together on the Central Park Pond. Perhaps their spirits are drawn to a place where they once found freedom from their overprotective father, or maybe they just enjoy each other's company. In a city where ghosts are a dime a dozen, the Vandort Sisters stand out as a shining example of the power of love and sisterhood. So the next time you visit Central Park and see 2 figures gliding gracefully on the ice, remember, they're not just ghosts, but 2 sisters who found solace and joy in each other's company.
Imagine minding your business in Central Park and see 2 ghostly figures dressed in old-timey clothing skating. Like they're still alive. Like No care in the world. No care that they're scaring the shit out of you. This next clip comes from an account called Vox, and they're basically going over a town that you probably did not know existed that is underneath Central Park.
Tell me about a thing you wish you learned in history class, but didn't. I'll start. To make way for Central Park, New York City destroyed a thriving, predominantly Black neighborhood known as Seneca Village. Here's how it went down. In the 1820s, most people in New York City lived in just this part of Manhattan. It was cramped, and acts of racist violence against Black people were rampant. So when affordable plots of land started to go up for sale here in Uptown, a Black man named Andrew Williams decided to buy 3 lots. It was his way out of Lower Manhattan, and for Black men at the time, owning property in the city was the only pathway to vote. Over the next 3 decades, as more Black families moved here, along with some Irish and German immigrants too, it became an integrated community, with nearly 300 residents between 82nd Street and 89th Street. But in 1853, the city set aside land to create America's first landscaped public park. The area included Sonica Village along with hundreds of other lots of land, home to around 1,600 people. To make way for the park, city newspapers described the people who lived there as squatters living in shacks. Many residents fought to keep their homes, or at least to get fairer compensation for them. But in the end, Sonica Village was taken through eminent domain and destroyed. In recent years, New York City started to reckon with this history after a team excavated the former Sonica Village site. The objects they found and census records show that Sonica Village wasn't a shantytown. It was a working and middle-class community and a growing neighborhood of Black property owners. Today, there's a temporary exhibition on this history up in the park through fall 2021.
Now, even though it does not say that this is haunted, Central Park is absolutely haunted, okay? A lot of murders and different things went on in that park. So you definitely do see ghosts there, but it wasn't just so simple as relocating them. Some of these people refused to go. So we all know what they did to those people. So yeah, history lesson of the day there. Once upon a time was a thriving Black community that was moved out and moved over so that we can have a big ass park with nasty stinking water. This next clip comes from Jumpers Jump podcast, and they are telling us about the history of a very famous haunted house. Yeah, just look.
Each one didn't move while he went ahead and killed every single one of them with a gun.
What the fuck?
Obviously he went to jail and he did the questioning and shit.
Yeah.
But that house ended up going back on sale. Some family ended up moving in there. Now this family, they were haunted for years.
Yeah,
fam.
probably.
Not years, but like however long they stayed.
Yeah, it has to, yeah.
Fuck. They would always get a haunting at what time?
3:15?
3:15 a.m. And story goes that they would realize later that 3:15 a.m. was the time the family was murdered.
Oh shit.
When the killing happened.
Holy
And what's crazy, the wife who lived there, she had nightmares and dreams of exactly how the murders went down, exactly the order of each family member dying.
And she didn't even know those people.
She didn't know those people. There's not even solid outline of what exactly went down on that night. But she was able to completely say what happened, how it looked, how everything went down. The husband that lived with them, he would see like his kids like levitate. Like they would just like levitate, like literally just in the fucking in like the family room. They're just like levitating and shit. The mom, she would walk into the kitchen, and the husband would look at her, and on her face, he would see.
That is absolutely insane. We've all seen Amityville Horror, and demonic presence is real. To make someone do something like that and then the next family feel it is crazy. This next clip comes from the Disappointed Goddess, and she is exploring the Merchants House Museum in New York City. Y'all, just watch.
Dubbed the most haunted house in New York City by the New York Times, the Merchants House Museum, known formally as the Old Merchants House and as the Seabury Treadwell House, is the only 19th century family home in New York City reserved intact, both inside and out. With almost 200 years of history, it's no wonder the Merchants House Museum is incredibly active with paranormal activity. In 1832, Joseph Brewster built the house on 4th Street in what was then a very quiet area of New York City. In 1835, 3 years later, prosperous merchant Seabury Treadwell purchased the house and moved in with his wife Eliza and their 8 children. They lived in the house for almost 100 years. Miraculously today, the Merchants House still stands. It has been open to the public as a museum since 1936. When the youngest member of the large Treadwell family, Gertrude, died in the house in 1933, her niece Lily Nichols prepared to sell the house and its contents at an auction. Recognizing the value of a historic house that retained its original furniture and decor, a distant cousin of the family, George Chapman, arranged to purchase the house and turn it over to a nonprofit organization he established to operate it. For 25 years, Chapman personally provided almost all of the museum's support. In 1936, the house was opened to the public, containing a large number of the family's possessions. Over the decades, accounts of unexplained phenomena, including temperature fluctuations, strange smells, disembodied voices and footsteps, sounds of parties and piano playing heard from the street, and alleged ghost sightings have been reported. To this day, the most frequent spirit sighting is that of Gertrude, who still watches over her family home. Born in the upstairs bedroom in 1840, Gertrude never married and lived her entire life here until she died at the age of 93. She is most often seen in a brown dress moving about inside the house, and she has even been rumored to interact with museum visitors. Her spirit is described as an elderly woman, normally by the main staircase or hovering over by the front door. The first supernatural encounter with Gertrude occurred in 1933, days after she had passed away, when neighborhood boys said that they saw the front door fly open and her apparition chased them away. In recent years, a group of tourists reported that upon ringing the doorbell at the entrance, they were greeted by a woman dressed in period clothing and told the museum was closed. Only the museum was open, and the museum workers never dressed in period clothing. While Gertrude is the most active spirit, Eliza's room is thought to be the most active space in the house. A paranormal investigator named Dan Sturgis recalls an investigation where one member of his group looked in Eliza's dresser mirror and asked Eliza if she thought she was pretty. When listening to the recordings later, one device picked up a female voice answering that question, saying, "Pleasant enough." Denise Freiberg, a museum volunteer, reported seeing a female servant with a doily on the back of her head, carrying a large tray into what would have been the dumbwaiter. Freiberg described the experience as the clearest paranormal visual she's ever had and said the apparition resembled a static black and white photograph. She said, "I think these are residual hauntings and people are stuck in a time loop," but Freiberg was not really freaked out or scared by the encounters. She continued saying there's not a sense of alarm or negativity to the paranormal activity. Most of the activity is auditory or olfactory. Sometimes you can smell perfume or something burning or cooking in the beehive oven. Upon my own visit, the energy feels very active but not alarming or dangerous in any way. It was almost as if I was in the way of someone trying to go about their normal day. I highly recommend a visit to the closest place you can get to a time machine, the Merchants House Museum.
It's no wonder that the house is haunted. The family occupied it for over 100 years. That's they shit. I would never purchase a house like this, where the family built it with love, lived in it with love, built a whole lineage of people. That's they shit. I'm cool. You can have it. This next clip comes from an account called Haunted History Trail of NYS, and they are showing us the Rolling Hills Asylum.
So when I bought Rolling Hills, I was really aware of the haunting. It's one of the reasons why I purchased it. Disembodied voices, doors opening and closing. The haunting is just so incredible and so intense. And the relationship I have with the spirits, they just come out and interact not only with me, but with the guests on a regular basis. Rolling Hills Asylum opened up in 1827 as the Genesee County Poorhouse. Come 1938, it became the Genesee County Infirmary. And then in 1964 to 74, we were the Genesee County Nursing Home. And then we closed down for 10 years, and there were 3 private owners prior to me. I bought it in 2010, and I'm going into my 14th year of owning it. One of the most popular places is the morgue. The morgue is incredible. We have a lot of spirits that go down there. We have 3 or 4 that are really prominent. We have Scarzi, who speaks Italian. We have Doc, who is, we're not sure if he's actually a physician or a mortician, but it's absolutely amazing. People will go down there. We have a suit hanging up. The suit will act like a pendulum. The spirits will control it as a pendulum. And then you can lay on the morgue table and ask for help. And it's really something, because if you have an old injury, the spirits will actually intuitively figure it out, and all of a sudden you'll feel a heat or a vibration around your knee. And then one of the other hauntings is Big Jack off a Shadow Hallway. There's the solarium at the end of the hallway. We keep a blue light on and we keep the doors closed, and there's 2 windows in the door. At night, Jack will pace back and forth, and he'll block out the windows and the blue light behind him. And oftentimes you'll hear him make a bang, and then he'll pop the doors open and go for a walk. So the spirits are not trapped here. They come and go. They travel around. I believe they have charges that they have to go and look after. And so, yeah, sometimes they're here, sometimes they're on vacation. Well, the future of Rolling Hills is really based on the crux of preservation and keeping the building in good repair and making improvements on it. And some of the improvements I would love to make would be to build a replica of one of the old barns and silos from when it was the poorhouse and turn it into an inn. And then maybe take the old carriage house from 1827 and turn it into a restaurant. That way people could actually have a full-on, well-rounded, long-term experience when they come, not just be here for a few hours, but maybe a few days.
I will never understand people that intentionally buy haunted things, like haunted houses, haunted items. Why would you ever want to FAFO in that way? I mean, I understand being a collector of things. I collect plants. I collect crystals. I'm not collecting nothing that got a spirit or entity connected to it. These next 2 clips come from The Disappointed Goddess again. It's a part 1 and 2, and she's taking a tour of the Morris Jal Mansion. It's a very historical place and a very haunted place. Now, part 1 is her just telling you the history to give you some context, because context is pretty important. And part 2 gets into the actual hauntings.
The Morris Jal Mansion is the oldest surviving house in Manhattan and was completed in 1765 as a summer house for British Colonel Roger Morris and his wife Mary. The estate was named Mount Morris, and from here you can see views of New Jersey, Connecticut, and all of New York Harbor. With the outbreak of the Revolutionary War in 1776, the Morris family abandoned their summer home. During the autumn of 1776, General George Washington and his officers occupied the house and made it their headquarters. The view from the mansion was ideal for observing troop movements, and Washington used this advantage to plan his army's first successful victory during the Battle of Harlem Heights. Despite this victory, Washington was forced to retreat to White Plains, New York. For the remainder of the war, the house was used as a headquarters for both British and Hessian armies. For a brief time, the house served as a tavern and hosted dinner for President George Washington, his cabinet secretaries, and their spouses on July 10, 1790. The dinner was symbolic in that it was held in the same place Washington scored his first victory during the Revolutionary War. Soon, the tavern became unsuccessful and the house was abandoned. In 1810, Eliza and Stephen Jamel purchased Mount Morris. At a moment when Stephen's business was floundering, Eliza applied herself to the real estate trade, buying and selling land and renting properties downtown. Her success made large profits, making her one of the wealthiest women in New York after Stephen's death in 1832. 14 months after Stephen's death, Eliza married former Vice President Aaron Burr in this room here. The marriage lasted 4 months. Here we have Aaron Burr's bedroom. Lin-Manuel Miranda would actually spend time in this room while writing the Hamilton musical, specifically Aaron Burr's parts. Eliza herself was the longest resident of the mansion, and after her death in 1865, control over the house and her estate was contested in court for 17 years. It is presently a member of the Historic House Trust of New York City. Check out part 2 for the hauntings reported at the Morris Jal Mansion. Welcome to part 2 of the Morris Jal Mansion, where I'll tell you about the paranormal activity. A ton of evidence has been captured at the Morris Jal Mansion, to the point where some news outlets have labeled it the most haunted house in New York City. There have been multiple deaths on record inside of the mansion. The museum archivist told Ghost Adventures that a servant hung herself on the 3rd floor. A Hessian soldier fell on the stairs and was stabbed by his own bayonet, and ultimately Eliza Jamel died in her bed in 1865. My personal favorite story is about a group of young students waiting to enter the museum on a field trip. A woman stormed onto the balcony and told them to be quiet or go home before going back inside. When the museum curator arrived, she apologized for being late. The teacher accompanying the children mentioned the rude woman on the balcony, and the curator became confused. She said, "There's no one else inside." When the kids saw a large portrait inside, they all recognized the woman from the balcony to be Eliza Jamel herself. Eliza is actually considered to be one of the more active and malevolent spirits in the house. There's a running theory that she assisted in the death of her first husband. He fell into a pitchfork, and it's insinuated that she may have helped him bleed out. In this video captured by paranormal investigator Vincent Carbone, you can hear a very sharp female voice which wasn't heard by anyone else in the room.
Let's see if anything turns over here. Let's see if anything turns over here. Let's see if anything turns over here.
Eliza's footsteps, whispers, and even singing have been captured and experienced by visitors at the museum. Two of the museum staff mentioned in an interview that while upstairs in the gift shop after hours, they heard the sounds of a table screeching on the floor and laughter from the basement. When they ran downstairs, they couldn't find anyone there and nothing had been moved. Another member of the staff saw a soldier's boot start to walk down the stairs before disappearing. The Jal Mansion still holds paranormal tours and regular tours during visiting hours. I highly recommend just walking around to soak in the historical energy from the original floors and wallpaper. I'll soon be going on a paranormal investigation in November at the mansion, so I'll be sure to give an update after. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, I'm not buying anything that someone may have themselves in or fell off the top floor, because every death is energy. And this is why I believe some of these ghosts get stuck, because they died a violent or a sudden death and they're just in a loop. Y'all better be making sure when y'all buy these houses you get the complete history. This next clip comes from an account called Whispers in the Dark, and they're explaining the very haunted, bloodied history of Fort William Henry.
Fort William Henry, located in Lake George, New York, is a historic site known for its key role in the French and Indian War, as well as its reputation for paranormal activity. Built by the British in 1755, the fort was the site of a brutal siege by French forces in 1757. Following the British surrender, a massacre occurred when Native American allies of the French attacked retreating British soldiers, leading to the deaths of hundreds. The violent history of Fort William Henry is believed to have left a lasting impression, with many reports of ghostly encounters in and around the site. Visitors and staff have reported hearing the sounds of battle, muskets firing, cannons booming, and the cries of wounded soldiers, despite the fort being long abandoned as a military outpost. Some have also seen apparitions of soldiers in colonial-era uniforms, wandering the grounds or standing guard as if still on duty. One of the most frequently reported sightings is that of a British soldier who appears in the barracks area. This ghost is often described as forlorn, as if reliving the trauma of the siege and massacre. Cold spots, disembodied voices, and the sensation of being watched are common experiences for those who visit, especially at night. Fort William Henry is now a museum, offering historical tours as well as ghost tours for those interested in its haunted legacy. The combination of its tragic past and numerous paranormal reports makes it one of New York's most haunted historic locations. Visitors leave Fort William Henry with a mixture of fascination and unease, forever touched by its spectral stories and historical significance. The echoes of the past resonate through the fort, reminding all who visit of the lives lost and the legends that linger in its shadow. Fort William Henry stands not only as a monument to military history, but also as a gateway to tales of the supernatural that captivate the imagination. Through captivating tours and ghostly tales, visitors are drawn into a world where history and the paranormal intertwine. Every corner of the fort tells a story, each shadow holding secrets of those who have walked its grounds long ago.
I'm going to tell you right now, all of these war zones or places where war were taking place are haunted. And don't be surprised if you go on a tour and you see a ghost in full uniform, army uniform. I mean, like I said, when you die suddenly, sometimes I feel like you get stuck in that place. This next video comes from an account called Ty Jackson, and he's explaining what he's seen in the smoke whenever the plane hit the Twin Towers. Y'all look at it, and we're going to talk about it.
I'm 31 years old. When this happened, I was in second grade in Miss Rowe's class, Holmes Elementary, Pensacola, Florida. Years later, I went back to look at the footage when I got older, and I noticed something. I re-recorded this footage. Tell me what you see. I'm obviously going to do other videos on it. There are other pictures of demons showing up in the smoke. It shows you who was in charge of that day. It was the enemy. But so many people that day gave their lives to Christ. And they went to be with the Lord. That was a sad day. I really hate the enemy. But tell me, did you guys see it? If you like content like this, hit like and follow for more.
Did y'all see that? Because I know I seen it. So if I seen it, I know y'all seen that. I 100% believe that there was a demonic spirit over this whole thing. There's no way There's no way that someone of a sound spirit can crash two planes into a building full of people with people on the plane. Definitely low vibrational energy was put into that. This last clip comes from an account called J Reads Anonymous, and it is a story that someone sent her about the time she's seen a very outdated dressed man at her job.
Story time. A few years ago, I was a recent Manhattan transplant. I relocated for work, and my office was in the One World Trade Center. On my first day, I ran into a man nervously pacing near the elevators, speaking on the phone, and he kept repeating himself. "It's okay, love. This building's sturdy. It's never coming down." It was strange, but I assumed he had a worrying partner due to previous events. Day after day, ran into the same man on the phone near the elevator, always with the same mantra. Eventually, I recognized that he was dressed the same. I mean, again, strange, but it was a white collared shirt. Maybe he owns like 30. And then I realized his cell phone was a fossil. Finally, about a month at my new job, I was invited to a company gathering. At this gathering, the president made a small speech about the former VP who perished on 9/11, and he had a photo. The moment I saw it, I pretty much lost my shit. It was the very man I'd been running into every single day. I, of course, told no one.
Trapped spirits. And it wasn't his clothes that were dated. I forgot. It was the cell phone. But it's just crazy. I remember where I was whenever 9/11 hit, and it was scary for all of us, but I can't imagine for the people's family who they knew they were in those buildings. And better yet, the people that were trapped. My heart will forever, ever, and ever go out to the loved ones of the victims and the victims themselves. That is all for today, YouTube. And if you're interested in me covering a person, place, or thing topic, please email me or leave it down below. And until next time, y'all do good, be good, and stay safe.